Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for your participation, your attendance at the second Talanoa, staged on behalf of the PIC-ISOC board, and on their behalf, I'd like to welcome everyone there, everyone here. My name's Will Tibben. I'm at the University of Wollongong, and I've been a PIC-ISOC member for, well, since about 2006. So I spent some time on the board around 2012, and kind of have remained a member. So my job really today is just to make way for other people to speak, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. Just to maybe recap or kind of explain the Talanoa concept, which is essentially a Polynesian term or word which relates to storytelling, and its features really relate to respectful tolerance, and also just listening to what other people have to say about topics of concern, and it's through this kind of dialogue where everyone gets to talk, and not only talk but also listen, that we can come to new understandings about complex problems. So today's topic on cybersecurity is one that's looking at cybersecurity in this particular time of COVID and beyond, and that's what today's speakers are going to be speaking about. And also the specifics as they relate to the Pacific. Cybersecurity policy, its applications in some senses is in its early stages of development, and certainly a lot of work's been done, and things are, as you could say, transforming with digital transformation. We're getting to learn more about cybersecurity policy and the like. But without further ado, I will introduce you to tonight's speakers. We've got Anne Dunn-Baleilevuka. Anne's the Commissioner of Online Safety who's the Commissioner for Online Safety in Fiji. So thank you very much, Anne, for making your time available and speaking. We have Torrin Marquardt from Standards Australia. Torrin's current role is International Engagement Manager for Standards Australia. We have Suetena Loia from the Ministry of ICT from Samoa. Suetena is the Acting Chief Executive Officer for Information and Communication Technology. We have Klee Atkins from CERT New Zealand. CERT's the Principal Pacific Partnership Advisor, so welcome, Klee. And we have Kensly from Vanuatu, from CERT in Vanuatu, and Kensly is currently the officer in charge. So each of the speakers will talk for about 10 minutes, and I encourage you, if you've got any questions while we're talking, while the speakers are doing their presentations, please put them in the chat, and we will attempt to get to the questions probably after everyone's had their talk, have spoken, and we'll open it up for discussion. And if you've got specific questions to specific people, just make that clear in the chat. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Anne. Thank you very much, Anne. If you'd like to start. If you've got slides to share, there's generally a share button down the bottom of the screen, which you can, if you click on that, you'll be able to share your screen, but there's no obligation to have slides or anything like that. And sorry, I actually forgot to introduce Cherie, who's the chairman of the board. Cherie, Cherie Langakali, and Timoci from the PIC-ISOC board. Thanks for making this possible. So Anne, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just let me know if you can't hear me, but Bulavinaka and good evening. Thank you so much for just the opportunity to sort of share on this topic. So I'm really just coming at this more from a broad perspective of cybersecurity, I guess, in Fiji, but more particular to online safety, and then more specifically to the Online Safety Commission's experience with COVID-19, and then what we're sort of seeing like as we transition into the post-COVID-19 world, or post-pandemic world. And so I'd be really interested in any questions that you may have, like throughout the presentation. I don't at this stage have any slides to share, so it's really just me talking for the next 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it as short and simple as possible, but the commission, just a bit on the brief, a bit of background, just on a brief of the commission itself. It's a recently established commission that was set up by the Online Safety Act here in Fiji, and we had started operations from last year. And so we've been running for about 22 months now. And with COVID-19, it really brought out, and this pandemic really brought out sort of the need and the grave need for infrastructure and more of a collective approach towards online safety and cybersecurity as a whole. So we're seeing that during the COVID-19 period here in the country, when the virus had initially been introduced to our shores, there was a lot that took place online. And so a lot of information was shared online about the virus, and a lot of information was shared in an effort to get information out there, because it was the most prominent way to really exercise and deal with what was happening globally. It was really good. It was a good platform to sort of get information out as quickly as possible so that individuals could safeguard themselves. So in that, the commission took the role of really just maneuvering with the information that was being put out. As the commission, we act primarily to promote online safety in the country and raise community awareness, particularly around digital literacy, and really working with communities. We work strongly with Fiji Police in terms of raising awareness in the country. And in that was sort of one of the most effective ways that we were able to engage with communities last year. And we were also able to go out to schools and gauge what schools understood of online safety in general. The commission itself is also able to receive complaints of online abuse, and that's particular to online abuse in the sense of online bullying or image-based abuse, or something that's affecting the individual. So it's not necessarily hacking or cybersecurity threats or cyber threats that are affecting the infrastructure or the computers and its networks, but it's more to do with the individuals, which is why this sort of conversation from my end will be most likely for the individual itself and the experience that people have online. So during the COVID-19 period, we had noticed this really big shift of information that was being shared online, and how that was being shaped for us here in the country. So we had information that was going out online in an effort for health reasons, obviously, to be able to protect people. But what we could have done better for us was that we could have understood the dynamics of what information was to be shared as early as possible. And so, which we had learned in the first couple of weeks when the virus came, and it sort of developed then into April and May and June, when information started going out, and it was more broad in the sense that details of individuals were no longer being shared, which was really good. because in the beginning, it seemed like anything and everything to protect individuals was being shared online. So that was something that we really noticed throughout the COVID-19 period. The Commission received a lot of reports of mostly comments relating to personal information that was being shared. We received reports regarding online abuse that was in the realm of image-based abuse that went up from the amount of reports that we received last year during the same time. We also received reports that were around defamatory comments, which weren't necessarily something that had to do with the virus itself or the pandemic. And then further to that, we noticed, and there weren't any reports lodged specifically with the Commission, but we noticed the trend of information that was being shared with regards to sort of the relief or the remedies to the virus. And that was big here in the country because we're very communal, but we're also very sensitive to how we use natural medicine. And so a lot of that took a role in the type of information that was being shared online. In terms of cybersecurity as a whole, the threats were definitely there, but government initiatives definitely took the steps to keep individuals guarded. There were different technologies that were used to sort of contain the spread of the virus. There was a new Fiji Care app or Care Fiji app that was launched during the COVID-19 experience here to help contain the virus. Different health messages went out on particularly social media platforms and then subsequently to traditional media. But we're seeing that in transition into a post-COVID world. One thing that we are seeing is, I'm seeing a question and I'll get to that in a minute. I think that's specific. We're seeing that transition into how different technologies are then used in the country, because education was really one of the biggest things that took a toll, in the sense that we didn't have the infrastructure set up for education to be done so widely, so rapidly. But although we have the networks available and people have access to the internet, it was securing those internet platforms that is definitely a lesson and a takeaway that we bring from this. But with regards to the national security, cybersecurity policy, there was one that was initiated earlier in, I want to say 2013. And there's a national policy that's currently in place, but there is also a tabled cybercrime bill that's in the country, and that's specific to cyber crimes, but it's still being tabled in Parliament. And so I'm sure that the national cybersecurity policy is also up for review, but we currently have one. And I know that it's also being worked on for review, just in terms of that question from Rajneesh Nash. I don't want to mess the name, but yes. And so it was already developed. And so I think it's just being fine-tuned, although it has a lot of room to grow because of how technologies have changed from the time that it was built or put together. I think at this point, that's where I'm going to leave this talk and this part of my talk. But if there's definitely any questions, I am looking forward to answering them. I see one from Elaine. And if I can answer them now, so a few of the challenges that we have faced from establishment is really just integrating law enforcement and the Commission. And so we did that through the MOU that was signed with Fiji Police and OSC earlier this year. And so we were able to integrate that. The commission is an independent body in its legal form that we are a corporate body that's able to represent ourselves. However, with the Information Act, we're legally bound by the definition of being a government agency. So there's a bit of a tricky relay on that second question. It's independent in the sense that we are a corporate body able to act as our own. But in light of the Information Act, we're also representatives of government agencies as defined by that act. The cybercrime bill, in terms of coverage, the different sectors of, so the cybercrime bill is specific to cybercrime in the country, and it's not necessarily relative to the different sectors of the economy. I'm not sure if I'm answering that question correctly, but if the question is for the cybercrime bill that's currently being tabled or that's currently in Parliament, so the cybercrime bill is only specific to aligning Fiji to the Budapest Convention, which is the only international binding convention that holds us for anything related to cyberspace. And so the cybercrime bill is detailed for that interlining or integration of the Budapest Convention so that we can become a party to that convention. Yep. I hope that was the...
Yeah, thank you very much, Jan. That was great. I'm sure we'll get some time later on to follow up with some of these questions. Now I'll introduce Torrin Marquardt from Standards Australia. Standards Australia's been doing work in the Pacific, informing people about the ISO 27,000 standards. So Torrin's going to speak a bit more about that. Thanks, Torrin.
Thank you, Will. I'm just going to share my slides. Give me one moment here. Okay. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, and if you could give me, say, a thumbs up if you can see my slides okay? Great, thank you. So thank you to PICASOC for the invitation to speak this evening. My name is Torrin Marquardt, and I'm an International Engagement Manager at Standards Australia, and I'm here to talk to you a bit about cybersecurity standards. So first, there we go. I'll give you a bit of background about Standards Australia. So we're an independent, not-for-profit organization, and this is not typical as a national standards body. Many national standards bodies around the world are actually part of government, including the standards bodies in the Pacific region. But we are recognized by the government as the peak national standards body in Australia, and we represent Australia and Australian interests at two of the world's biggest international standards bodies. So those are the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, and the IEC, which is the International Electrotechnical Commission. And we are a member-based organization, and our work schedule and agenda is driven by Australian stakeholders and serving the Australian community. So the first question some of you might have is, what is a standard? If you come from a technical background, you might be very familiar with them, but many people are not familiar with them. So I'll just give you a brief overview. So essentially, a standard is a document that sets guidelines for how a product or a service should be designed and how it should perform. And they are developed through a consensus-based process. So we bring together a broad range of experts, technical experts, to agree on best practice and on the content of the document. So there are international standards, there are national standards, and in the case of cybersecurity, we'll be speaking about international standards. And in bringing together the experts to create these documents, that could include experts from, if you're looking at cybersecurity, it could include ICT providers and manufacturers, government and public agencies, academia, businesses, consumers, a whole range of experts, and really to ensure the integrity of the document and follow this consensus-based process, you want to have as broad a range of interests involved as possible. So in other words, a standard is an industry-backed document to a market-based problem. And an important thing to note is that our standards are voluntary documents. However, they can be referenced in legislation, and this then makes them mandatory. So just as an example, there are many Australian standards for building and construction that are referenced in our building code, which then makes them mandatory. And for the topic of today's webinar, so standards for cybersecurity could also be used to support national cyber policies. And one quick thing to note is that standards are just one part of quality infrastructure. So this framework also includes certification, accreditation, testing, metrology, and all of these elements sit alongside policy and regulation. But Standards Australia is responsible solely for standards development activities. However, some standards bodies in the Pacific actually look after all of these different pillars of quality infrastructure. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're the representative of those two major standards organizations, ISO and IEC, and they are responsible for developing international standards. So across a range of sectors, including ICT and cybersecurity standards. We're also a member of the Pacific Area Standards Congress, or PASC, which is a regional body which focuses on regional collaboration in the standards space. And we're seeing also quite a bit more, standards bodies are growing in importance around the world and really in the Pacific region as well. We engage quite a bit with the region, and at the moment, Fiji, PNG, and Vanuatu are members of ISO, but we're seeing a few other countries as well taking steps to become members, and I would anticipate that this trend would continue to grow, and yeah, we hope to continue working with the region on this. And an important thing to note too is having a standards body serves as your country's gateway into these international bodies. So your gateway to the adoption of international standards and the use of international standards. So now that I've given you a bit of background, which I hope was useful, we can switch over to the specific topic of cybersecurity and looking at cybersecurity in a COVID-19 world. So the pandemic, without a doubt, has pushed us all to embrace new ways of working, new ways of communicating. I think tonight's session is a perfect example of that. And although, it has brought some greater efficiencies and flexibilities in how we work, it also has introduced an increase in cyber threats. So, for example, for those working outside of the office, there's more work to be done by, say, your IT teams to make sure that your networks are kept safe. This also means from a physical security perspective too, there's an increased risk if you're taking your laptop home with you and traveling with it, the possibility of leaving it somewhere or having somebody steal it, that risk is increased. And also with economies around the world hit hard by the pandemic, there's been an increase in cybercrime activities and cyber attacks. But the point that I want to make here is that having standards and systems in place to keep your information safe has therefore never been more important than it is today. So now to look specifically at well, one particular series of standards that Will mentioned in the introduction. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's called the ISO IEC 27000 series. So it's a family of standards providing best practice recommendations on all things information security management. So it helps protect the security of assets, and this can include financial information, intellectual property, employee details, all sorts of private data like that. And there are about 45 standards in the series, but 27001 is kind of the foundational standard, the most well-known one, the one that people tend to start with. And it provides requirements for an information security management system, which is a systematic approach to managing sensitive company information. And it's essentially a framework that considers an organization's people, processes, IT systems, and then applies a risk management process across the board. And it's designed to help organizations of all sizes, of all sectors, from SMEs through to your larger ones, and is probably, yeah, is one of the most used international standards in the world, and yeah, a key part of the suite of standards on cybersecurity. All right, so although the series is intended for use by organizations and businesses, I also just wanted to highlight that the standards also play a big role for consumers and the community more broadly. So as an employee at work, for example, you put trust in your organization that your personal information is going to be safe and secure. This could be anything from your home address or bank information, or even work-related data through your email inbox. And we put this trust every day in our organization that that information is going to be kept safe. But how do we know that it will be kept safe? And if your organization has standards in place, it gives you that greater confidence that there is a safeguard, that there is a system in place that's following, international best practice that's been agreed upon by experts all around the world. And the same can be said for products or services that you might be using. So for example, if you're making purchases online or accessing other digital platforms, having that assurance that the businesses that you're engaging with are adhering to standards as well. So in short, cybersecurity standards build trust for consumers and businesses alike when it comes to sharing private data and using digital services and platforms. All right. And another point just to add, I won't go through this full list, but cybersecurity standards do a lot more than just addressing cyber safety. I mean, they provide interoperability between different systems so that they can talk to one another, and provide a tried and tested solution rather than starting from scratch. And also by using an international standard, if it's the same standard that countries around you are using as well, it opens up opportunities for trade. And also, as the world changes, and particularly in the cyberspace where things seem to be changing incredibly rapidly, standards are regularly updated as well to address these changes and support innovation, and address any new challenges that might arise. And so lastly, I'd like to briefly talk about a piece of work that we did in the region last year. I think I actually saw Saya on the line as well, who was involved in the work. So hello, Saya. And so the work that we did was related to the ISO IEC 27000 series. So we partnered with the 5 countries you can see on the screen here. So Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Tonga, and Vanuatu. And we focused on promoting the adoption and use of the 27000 series, and really raising awareness as well. That was a big piece of the work too. And so at the end of the project, we published a report which has recommendations for further engagement and participation in each of the 5 countries. I'd be happy to share a link to the report as well for anyone that's interested. But I've pulled out just a few of the key recommendations which were common across all 5 countries. So of course they differed, between the 5, but here were some of the key common themes. So many of the recommendations related to further raising awareness on cybersecurity and the role that standards play. So this is, whether it's through community campaigns or more formal training and education programs. And another key recommendation was related to the development of national strategies or policies for cybersecurity, which might consider standards and the role that they could play in supporting those policies. And lastly, it saw the establishment of working groups focused on the adoption and greater use of cybersecurity standards to, serve as kind of the standards champions. So at the end of the program, there were driven groups to keep the momentum on the work. So I will leave things there, but definitely open the floor for questions, comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Torrin. That was really good. Does anybody, I know there's a quick question from Rajneesh asking you about the report. So if it's possible maybe to share that either through the chat or even later on if you don't have the details available at this point. Yeah. Okay. What we might do is, I know there are some questions coming through. I just haven't, didn't quite see them, but what I think we should do is probably just move on. Oh, that's just, Anne is just responding to some people, which is quite good. Thanks, Anne, for that. Suetena Loia from Samoa, the Ministry of ICT. I'll hand you straight over to Suetena so that he can, what I'd like to do is maybe get everyone to have their say so that if we can leave time at the end for questions rather than having too many questions now and then having the last person not really being able to speak. So that's how I'd like to try and do it. So Suetena, you've got the floor and I'm very interested to hear what's happening in Samoa. You need to unmute your mic, I think. Sorry, your mic. There we go.
Thank you, William. If you can show that you can hear me with a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. So good evening, everyone, and good evening, friends, and from the Pacific and colleagues. I see some familiar faces and as well as some familiar names. My name is Suetena Loia. I am the Acting Chief Executive Officer for the Information Communication Technology Division for the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology of Samoa. So I'll just try to provide some overview of what Samoa has been doing in terms of pre-COVID, post-COVID, and during the COVID scenery. So on that note, so before COVID actually hit the world, Samoa was already engaged in developing its cyber security and cyber safety initiatives. And from that, it created awareness and knowledge capacities in terms of programs and schemes throughout the country with works from partners and other avenues of support. In 2016, Samoa had developed its cybersecurity strategy, and this strategy has been the pathway for all cybersecurity developments as well as cyber safety within the country. Through that, it had developed the child sex abuse material filtering policy, which was work from our sector through the Office of the Regulator and the Office of the Attorney General, in terms that it will be adopted by telco companies as well as ISPs within the nation to actually filter online content and other mischief materials. In 2019, the government of Samoa had approved the setup of a national CERT, and through that work in 2020 is now in the pipeline in terms of erecting this national CERT as CERT. In 2019 as well, we saw the approval and the move forward of having a National Digital Transformation Authority, which will guide all national digital transformation projects, as well as reducing standards and regulations for both public and private companies in terms of standardizing technology and standardizing process and standardizing all the works that is required to actually produce a digitally transformed country. Also in 2019, the Samoa Information Technology Association was established. The purpose of this association is to assist the government, both in the private sector as well as the public sector, in raising awareness in terms of utilization of technology, especially in the area of information, and improving cybersecurity and awareness in terms of engagements with communities as well as other partners in terms of producing a well-informed population of how to use technology online and how to use technology offline in terms of protecting their data and information. So we saw a lot of digital transformation that were happening, and the need to also develop cybersecurity support within this digital transformation was the other area that the government saw that it required support on in terms of setting up the Digital Transformation Authority. While at the same time, a lot of the other areas such as finance and infrastructure saw a lot of cyber crimes resulting from increased financial fraud. Through this increases, banks and financial institutes reviewed process in terms of validation and increased financial awareness around identity protection and trust circuits verification. As well as in the works, the ministry is working in terms of developing a cybersecurity policy, which will influence all the current work that has been developed throughout the time that cybersecurity has been one of the major agendas for government to actually bring forth and to increase the awareness on. So in terms of the COVID, it has been something that has hyperdrived a lot of these initiatives that the government has already planned for, such as putting the prioritization on the cybersecurity policy development, as well as increased awareness and knowledge capacity throughout portals and video streaming sites, as well as television and radio. Development of cybersecurity guidelines and guides in terms of materials that are published online through various government websites, such as this is one of the attempts that the Ministry of Communication has endeavored in terms of producing cybersecurity bulletins monthly throughout the whole year. Also through this attempt, a lot of the areas in terms of work from home have spiked, and also collaboration with partners and local stakeholders in terms of improving this drive for a safer and better Samoa has also been going quite smoothly at times and not so smoothly at times, but through COVID, I think we have been able to manage those quite well. So we've also seen a lot of increases in financial fraud in terms of spams and people being tricked in terms of financial attempts of trying to take money from their bank accounts and through online services. But many of these financial institutions have pushed out warnings and awareness materials in terms of trying to combating these areas of attacks. During COVID as well, a lot of the government bodies had come together in terms of trying to not only act in terms of national emergency to actually produce a digital plan in terms of rolling out work from home plans and work from home security measures for employees as well as customers to actually produce the requirements in terms of sustaining Samoa's operation while under a lockdown. For these partnerships with the private sector, in terms of the telcos, have seen a free safe SIMs and online education portal going up through the assistance of CETA. As well as this, joint efforts both from the ministry and the National Emergency Operations Center in terms of producing online safety materials, as well as continuous radio awareness on how to be safe online. In a general form, I think a lot of our colleagues have shared the same understanding. Even the bad guys have gone into hyperdrive, so you've seen a lot of increase in ransomware campaigns, financial fraud, malware campaigns from various vectors, and some of them are very creative nowadays. Social media account takeovers, website defacements, and cybercrime becoming a business, and are hiring professionals to actually create these infrastructures and tools. So the road ahead is quite long, and we all need to wake up and know that everything is changing. COVID has become a catalyst to digital change and a digital adoption. This catalyst has put all of us in digital space, which has created a bigger pool for attackers to go for. Cyber safety not only be a personal need, it will be a national security problem. Cyber safety will affect all areas of the Samoan economies. Cyber is the future of infrastructure of everything. Awareness will increase as new attack vectors increase. Community support from educational body, industry leaders is vital to finding these new ways of attacks. What's next for the future and future action? We all need to be creative with our cyber safety campaigns. We need to strengthen legal and regulations to include cyber safety support in products and services that our business provides. We need to build a cyber safety culture that is second nature. We need to integrate cybersecurity and cyber safety into the fabric of our Pacific culture. We need to review operational process to include cybersecurity and cyber safety as part of the operational risk management. We need to work together on many levels to see this through in the days ahead. Digital services is the future, and we must build resilient and secure infrastructure. We must continue to strengthen regional and international partnerships, such as PLON and PACSON and more. The question we want to answer is it possible to develop cybersecurity policy in the Pacific where the key metric of such success is cyber safety? Yes. It creates a cybersecurity standard. It will influence new laws in the areas of cybersecurity and cyber safety. It will strengthen knowledge tools as well as cybersecurity infrastructure. It will open doors for a cybersecurity industry, which will enable for greater cybersecurity safety support. It will produce new talent and resources available in the region to greatly impact the sustainability of all the cyber safety agenda, considering country priorities, local laws, levels of development, and considering the unity of local laws and international laws around cybersecurity, supporting the Budapest Convention and other international support around cybersecurity engagement. And on that note, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. And here are a few things that you could do in terms of staying safe online and be cyber safe. Use strong passwords, think before you click, post, type, make secure choices, protect your devices, and browse wisely. And as part of the October theme for PACSON, Cyber Smart Pacific has been a campaign that we have pushed out. And this is a video. I would kindly request if I could actually have time to play this video for everyone.
Okay, yeah, how long does it go for? Oh, yes, well, that's fine, thank you. Yeah, no problem. I think when you share your screen, Suetena, we need to share your audio. I think it's not coming through. Can we just I think, oh, here we go. Yeah.
See the many advantages cyberspace offers, and our economy and quality of life are better for it. However, as we enjoy its benefits, we also recognize that it threatens us in a variety of ways. Everything around us is connected digitally. What you see may not always be true. Who you think you know may not always be who they appear to be. The question is, are you safe online? Every day you may come across unknown attempts to jeopardize your data, your devices, and your personal identity. Sometimes a casual peek is really snooping. Sometimes sharing information too often may result in critical private data being made public. Sometimes a lucky find can lead to bad luck. Even visiting a website can lead to unnecessary sites. Today, cybercrime causes huge problems for society, personally, financially, and even matters of national security. To avoid getting these threats, use strong passwords. Think before you click, post, and type. Make secure choices. Protect your computers. Protect your devices. Browse wisely. Protect ourselves. Be cyber safe.
Well, thank you very much, Suetena. That was it's great to see all the work that Samoa has been doing. If, in a sense, you were kind of very well prepared for the COVID in a number of different ways. I was thinking that certainly with all the work that's been done since 2015 with the cyber strategy and cybersecurity strategy and digital transformation is really paying dividends now. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to Klee. Klee from CERT New South Wales. New South Wales, sorry. CERT New Zealand. So Klee, yeah, the floor is yours. So take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, William. And kia ora, everyone. I'm Klee from CERT NZ. Cybersecurity and COVID-19 is quite the expansive topic, so I'm going to touch very briefly on a couple of issues, and if anything catches anyone's eye, we can dig into it a little bit more through the conversation. So I kind of want to start with what we're actually seeing. I'm going to share a couple of stats from New Zealand. It's based on the reports that CERT NZ has been receiving. But based on the conversations that we've had with our Pacific partners across the region, a lot of the trends that we have here in New Zealand, while the numbers might not be exactly the same, the trends are quite familiar and quite similar to what a lot of the other countries in the Pacific are seeing. So one point is really just in the rise of reports of incidents that we're receiving. In 2019, we had 4,740 reports. And in the first half of this year alone, we already hit 3,120 reports. The highest month was a huge peak in April, where we had 820 reports just in that 1 month. And it correlated directly with when New Zealand entered alert level 4, which was the highest level of lockdown that we reached. So it's unsurprising that there's likely a linkage between that alert level and the rise in the reports and potentially the rise in incidents as well. The range of incidents that we're seeing covered the whole board. Some major things that we saw included malware and ransomware. And I really want to highlight that right now because we're actually seeing quite a new wave of emotet. And if anyone's been reading the news of what's happening in the US with Ryuk, that's targeting hospitals at the moment, that's not necessarily something that we've had any reports in across the Pacific, but emotet is something that we've been seeing quite a bit of across the region. So it is something to be aware of. While there's, like I mentioned, a huge range of incidents in the region, the real driver of the growth at CERT NZ, similar to some of the points that the other speakers have already pointed to, were scams and fraud. Between Q1 and Q2, we saw a 230% increase in scams and fraud. That spike largely driven by extortion and blackmail. But we also saw a gradual but sustained increase of scams related to buying and selling online. And that's a huge trend and quite important to take note of, because it's really impacting the way folks have shifted the way they're working, shopping, and trading online. And this is something that is Suetena mentioned in Samoa, but also in previous conversations across the Pacific that we're seeing. The Financial Markets Authority here in New Zealand actually issued a report back in May, specifically highlighting some targeted campaigns focused on the Pacific communities here in New Zealand. And we've received reports that these are also carried over into the Pacific. So we were able to share those with the specific islands that were mentioned in the reports. So it's a challenging picture. I don't want to paint something a little too bleak. I know we've been pointing out a lot of the challenges that we all face, but it's also a big opportunity. Where there's a lot more attention being paid to the importance of digital connectivity and digital technology. It's a trend that was already started, but one thing for at least us on the practitioner side is very important, is it's increased the attention and focus on the security side and the security aspects of digital transformation, which is a very important dimension. So it's an opportunity. While it's a challenge, it's a huge opportunity for us to take strides forward on this space. But what do we do about it? Obviously, there's a whole bunch of different approaches that we can take, but the most important thing is to understand how diverse cybersecurity issues are. It takes a whole range of actors, each actor with different roles, different responsibilities, different capabilities, and different interests. There's no one size fits all solution, and there's no one organization that's going to be able to solve these challenges. It really takes everyone working together. And it's actually a really nice reflection of that in terms of the diversity of the panel today, but also of the audience. So it's really great to see folks not only from the technical area, but also decision makers, policy makers, everyday users, businesses, both big and small, as well as the incident response community and others coming together, because it really is going to take everyone applying different approaches, but working together to rise to these challenges. I do want to touch a little bit on the incident response community, because obviously coming from CERT NZ, that's kind of our home, or where we're most comfortable. As I mentioned, we're only one piece of the puzzle here in New Zealand, and CERTs across the world are only one piece of their local and international puzzle as well. But I do want to highlight, I guess, what we focus on here at CERT NZ. Our mandate has 5 main pillars: incident response and triage, situational awareness and information sharing, advice and outreach and awareness raising, international collaboration, and our work with the Pacific is particularly important for us as CERT NZ, and it's great to work with the Pacific community, and coordination of serious cyber incidents. So I'm not going to go in depth into any of those, but if we want to dig into it a bit deeper during the questions and answers, we can. But what's really important is what it boils down to, and that's coordination, building relationships with diverse stakeholders domestically and internationally, and building partnerships that are really focused on doing work, solving the challenge, solving the incident. And what it really takes is an underpinning and a foundation of trust across your community and trust with stakeholders. And this is something, again, that happens both domestically and internationally. We rely very much on the different network operators in our community, chambers of commerce to raise awareness, other organizations in the internet ecosystem. So for us, we work quite closely with NetSafe that focuses a lot on the safety side. We work very closely with Internet NZ and the .nz domain name that had their space in the internet community. And then within government, we're working with other agencies, the National Cybersecurity Center, Department of Internal Affairs, and all across the board, even foreign affairs, to address some of these challenges. So it's important to build those linkages, and it's great to see those similar linkages starting to build up and strengthen in our neighbors as well. I know Suetena mentioned CETA in Samoa is a key partner growing, and I know Sai is on the call as well. In Tonga, they're doing great work building a cybersecurity community there, and TWICT is a great group that's really taking the lead again on the cyber safety side recently. And internationally as well. We're really dependent on sharing information and building partnerships and coordinating, not just for instant response, but also to share best practices and learn from each other. And as Suetena hinted at with the mention of Paxon, there's a really great opportunity to plug into some regional networks that exist and are developing. And this e-Talanoa initiative as well is a great way to share information and learn from each other's experience. I did want to touch on one last point before we move on, and that is awareness raising. And this is just a really great example and the most recent example of how we can work together as a region. While they can be the most challenging folks to reach out to, they are the most important, and that's the users. They're a key audience because that's really the interface of humans and the machines, and that's where a lot of the challenges can take place, but where a lot of the solutions, where really small steps can add up and solve a lot of the vulnerabilities that we're facing. And again, Suetena has already mentioned this, but one of the big projects that we worked on recently was Cyber Awareness Month, for Cyber Awareness Month in October. So it's just wrapping up this month. And that was the Cyber Smart Pacific campaign. So the group came together, the incident response points of contact across the region under Paxon, proposed a whole bunch of different themes and titles, and we came up with Cyber Smart Pacific, Step Up Your Digital Safety and Security. And we shared 4 key lessons. They're the lessons that we actually use here. We've been using here in New Zealand for the last couple of years for Cyber Smart. And that's using a password manager, deploying 2-factor authentication, updating your software and devices, and checking your privacy settings. And these are 4 relatively simple steps, but they can go a long way to solve the majority of the challenges that many of us face on the cybersecurity side. So it's really important to be able to share that with each other and work together to develop this campaign. And you saw what Suetena and the team over in Samoa did, and I know a lot of the other islands and representatives here, Kensly might share what they've done in Vanuatu, and some of the other folks on the call might be able to speak up on the work they've done under the Cyber Smart Pacific campaign. So that's just one example. It's, I think, a really nice example. It's the most recent example of how we're able to share and work together to take these small steps that have a big impact in the long term to build a more resilient community and a stronger security community that can build up the ecosystem. So we can definitely unpack some more ideas on what we have done as a group, but I'd definitely be keen to hear not only from the other panelists, but also everyone on the call, different proposals and different ideas on new initiatives that we could take on in different ways that we could work together, build capacity, and do some cool stuff that'll help hopefully turn around some of these worrying trends that we're seeing in terms of cybersecurity.
Okay, thanks a lot, Klee. That was fantastic to hear about what was happening in New Zealand, particularly the connection with Pacific Island countries there, and being able to feed some of that information back into the Pacific Islands. Thank you very much. Now, our last speaker before we throw the floor open to general discussion is Kensly, who also comes from a country which has been very proactive in terms of ICT policy particularly. So I suppose it's no coincidence that they're kind of right on the ball with another CERT. So I'll hand it over to Kensly to tell us about what's been happening in Vanuatu.
Thank you, William. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Excuse my voice. I've been down with the flu for the last 3 days, but I'm glad to be part of this discussion. Cybersecurity in COVID-19 and post COVID-19. There's lots been done over cybersecurity space, especially in various countries, internationally, globally, and within our Pacific region, and I hope in various Pacific islands as well. In terms of what Vanuatu has been doing so far, CERT Vanuatu is newly CERT established in the Pacific. I think we are just it's our existence. We probably, this will be the 3rd year of existence. And we are glad to work along CERT Tonga, CERT New Zealand, CERT, ACSC and other PACSON member. For us, other Pacific Islands who are part of this conference this afternoon, please make an effort to join PACSON, a very active network, a very active community in addressing cybersecurity issues within our region. CERT Vanuatu existence comes into effective via a policy, cybersecurity policy, our national cybersecurity policy in 2013, which states the existence of a national CERT and CERT Vanuatu existence in 2018. Klee was fortunate to be part of the launching activity for CERT Vanuatu, the AVNIC. So we were tasked with 2 main objectives from our main comms decision, comms paper, and that is to respond to cybersecurity issues or threats within Vanuatu and to promote cybersecurity awareness within Vanuatu and to serve as a point of contact for cybersecurity in Vanuatu. Not only Vanuatu, but to collaborate with the region as well. As we've been doing a lot of awareness work over the last 2 years. Recently, we've been hit by COVID-19, and I presume all economies share the same difficulty, the same hardship. In terms of small island nations, we know resources are very limited, and when COVID-19 hit strike Vanuatu, we were not partly hit by COVID. We were still COVID free, but there are precaution measures that we get from the instruction from the SOE, the state of emergency which the government has put in place, that clear instructions for things like social distancing. This has dramatically affect the services for organizations and businesses in Vanuatu and for the government as a whole. CERT Vanuatu is still under the Vanuatu government, under the Prime Minister's office. Prior COVID-19, or sorry, during COVID-19, we've worked together with other government agencies to put up a readiness plan. In case of a worse scenario, if there is case in Vanuatu, what are we going to do? This means we identify key government essential services that needs to be operated, needs to be running. We have to look into equipment policies, which if worst case scenario where employees were to work from home, how will the government look into budget to purchase new equipment, or if the equipment in the office can be relocated to the homes, things such as creating new VPN connections. So these are some of the things that we work together with the government agencies to put up a readiness plan to address the worst case scenario if there is a COVID case in Vanuatu. We also, the COVID also sort of help us, the citizen, in a way that businesses tend to step up the security approaches and the security practices, because most of the services have already been shifted to cloud services. They are starting to use cloud services. For example, the education sectors. When the COVID virus came out, the government, the Ministry of Education, has has put out a notice for closure of schools, and those for the closure of school, and has also been in collaboration with CERT office and another private organization to help set up Moodle for schools. And currently, schools in Vanuatu are already using Moodle. These schools are secondary schools. They are all, the colleges, they are all using, not all, but a good percentage of them are using Moodle at the moment. That is something that COVID has brought, which we haven't seen before. We predict that these changes will come, but not as fast as what is happening. We've also encouraged the use. The government uses, not only the government uses, but we've seen organizations switch from normal meeting to Zoom online conference meeting using Zoom. We're aware of the security threats and vulnerabilities in Zoom. We've put out an advisory to our constituents, to our users, internet users, to organizations, in relation to several vulnerabilities to Zoom. We have also seen organizations moving into seeing the importance of collaborations. So the approach we took in Vanuatu is to take a multi-stakeholder approach where we invite different stakeholders to work with. So a few of the stakeholders include our ISPs in Vanuatu, and the regulator office, with the regulator office, the police, Vanuatu Internet Governance Forum. We recently, post COVID-19, we've signed an MOU. We've signed a multi-stake MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, to collaborate in all cybersecurity issues and cyber safety issues to address those issues within the region. We have seen a lot of social issues coming up recently with the trend going on regarding COVID. We've also seen an increase in online presence for users, internet users in Vanuatu. There's a huge increase in online presence. I believe it's because people are relying on internet for services. But then that also makes us think about the security of the users. More users will be vulnerable. We've seen similar trend of attacks, as mentioned by some of the other Pacific islands, and I believe every economy see the same trend of attacks happening. We are able, by this year, we are able to put figures to the attacks which are happening in Vanuatu, and these are successful attacks. Some of which where we've seen they are mainly online scam, fraud, and also cyber-enabled activity which are going on in Vanuatu. Some of the scams are successful, and we're able to put figures to that, and these are our citizens who are users, home users. We've seen business email compromise as well in Vanuatu. Organizations in Vanuatu will lose huge sum of money. How we address the issues? We are moving in a way that we want all our stakeholders, all the businesses, to collaboratively working on addressing cybersecurity issues. One of the things we've recently worked on during COVID-19, where we focus on, we realized that we haven't got any strategy in place to address cybersecurity issues. Therefore, This year we are working on our cybersecurity strategy, which we are hoping to launch our cybersecurity strategy by end of this year. CERT Vanuatu was tasked to lead out on the national cybersecurity strategy development. We have done various national consultation for our cybersecurity strategy. This we have completed last week, which we are really happy, and our strategy is now at the drafting stage, where we are waiting for the review, and then hopefully we can have something in place where we can follow for the next 5 or 10 years down the road to address cybersecurity issues in Vanuatu. We are also part of caption, as I mentioned. We have October as our cyber month. We collaborate in Cyber Smart Pacific campaign in Vanuatu as well. We put out a post via our social media page to our citizens. We've created flyers, and we also produced two video clips, two short video awareness video addressing how the use of two-way authentication, and another one on phishing attacks and online money scam. These are some of the efforts that we have put in Vanuatu. Another one that we are hoping that it will come into existence is our cybercrime bill, which is ready to be tabled into Parliament next month. And we are hoping that this will get passed by the parliamentary, and then we can have a cybercrime law, cybercrime act, to save us as to prosecute any crimes or any offences committed, cyber offense committed within the country, and hopefully we can be part of the Budapest Convention and other convention where we can work together in addressing those social issues. Into the future, we will only see an increase in cyber threats. There will be breach after breach. Despite all the security measures we put in place, the monitoring equipment and all this, we will continue to see the rise in number of threat actors around the world, internationally, within our region, within our own economy. But as I will echo the words of various presenters, we believe in collaboration. Collaboration is the key to our success in Pacific. And if we can collaborate in every level, then I believe we will have a safe Pacifica. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kensly. That was great. Thank you very much. Okay, well, now's the time to start thinking about questions that you want to pose to the audience. Maybe I'll just, does anyone have any questions that they want to jump online straight away? Well, what I'll do is I'll just pull up one of the questions that was posed earlier on, which I think was mainly to Anne, but I think probably is a good one just to throw out to everybody, which relates to young people in terms of how to engage young people. At some point, I think Suetena talked about education as an important aspect in terms of developing a kind of comprehensive cybersecurity approach, which, you know, promotes cyber safety. So I'll just throw that question out. Are there any kind of ways that young people can really participate in these kinds of initiatives to promote cybersecurity? Don't be shy. Torrin, is there any ways, I mean, does Standards Australia have any kind of outreach activities to young people to kind of teach them about standards?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I understand, yeah, my answer might be a little different than how the others might answer it. But I think in the standards world, I mean, a big thing that we're trying to see is the integration of standards education for, say, universities and education at that level. Often engineers, other technical and other technical areas of work, standards is not part of that education. So, I mean, around the world, that's something that we're hoping to see increase, and as well in the actual development of the standards. You know, it's really important to have a diverse, a really diverse group of people involved, and that doesn't just mean, different countries or different, different genders. That different ages is just as important, and that's something that we're working hard to do, is get the next generation involved, and in the region as well are looking at ways that we can get younger people more involved in the standards process as well, and understand, the value, because I think it's something, standards are something that when everything's working fine, they're working well, they're invisible, but it's when something goes wrong that you can be, you almost, you notice them when something goes wrong, and it's when they're in place and things are working smoothly, that they're at their best. So yeah, that's a roundabout way of answering it, but I think it's important to have not only the awareness piece for young people on the importance of standards, but then also have greater involvement in how they're developed too.
Thank you. Anne, I think the question was directed at you. Do you have a response to that in terms of Fiji?
Right. I just wanted to add on, but I think I had answered separately to the individuals that asked. But I just to add on sort of to that, having a standard almost, but I know that I realize that you're not in the educational space, but it was really interesting to see, like for Fiji, that students were very interested in this cybersecurity, cyber safety space, even if they didn't fully understand what it meant, because every time we did school awareness or community awareness, they were very much engaged in what the process looked like. And so I definitely think that there's room for engaging young people here. Young people can participate at really different levels. So you have policy levels where individuals are encouraged to submit whatever their thoughts may be to the relevant ministries, or at least to the commission as well. We had gone to a university earlier this year, or just a few months ago. It all just seems like one time, but or just a few months ago, where the university students ended up submitting thoughts on what they thought of cyber security, and particularly for cyber safety in Fiji, because there's different legislations that are up for review in the next couple of months. And so they were able to get engaged in that manner. But they're also, you have public consultations that young people can also get involved in. And even different companies are looking to engage young people on sort of a placement or volunteer basis with the different companies that are in the country. But there's definitely spaces to get involved. I do know that Save the Children here in Fiji is also doing a project, and they're involving particularly young people to get their perspective on what digital cyber hygiene, cyber safety looks like for them, and what they think that is. And so there's different NGOs, there's different CSOs in the country that are having their individual pocket exercises, and they're really wanting young people to get involved, because that's we're the generation that grew up with these technologies. And so particularly here in Fiji, where there's a bit of I'm sure that they have it in other countries as well, but there's a bit of a gap in terms of the the understanding of technologies. And so you have a generation that didn't necessarily grow up with it, but is using it for work and for these types of things. And then you have an entire generation that's growing up with it being given to them at like the age of 1 or 2 for the simplicity of just keeping them quiet, I guess, or just entertained for a certain amount of time to be able to do something. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any others want to jump in on that particular question? No? Well, I've got another question that relates to increased delivery. It kind of talks to what Kensly was talking about in terms of Moodle. And there was a question from Kurenesh with asking, with online learning and internet being delivered into schools, does any country have policies or frameworks for a safer online experience? I'll throw that to you, Kensly, seeing that you spoke about it. It's in the chat if you. Yeah.
Vanuatu, we have our Ministry of Education. They have a cybersecurity policy, which I believe that most of all institutions adhere to that policy. But we are on our outreach awareness to the schools. We spoke with the principal, the teachers, and we encourage schools to have sort of ICT or cybersecurity policy as well, develop for the institutions. But in terms of nationally, our Ministry of Education has put out a cybersecurity policy for the ministry. It covers as the part of the policies covers cyber safety issues as well. So I hope that is from Vanuatu. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you. Yeah. Suetena, do you have anything to add about from Samoa as such?
In terms of education?
Yes, yes.
So at the National University, they are experimenting on a cybersecurity culture where throughout the university, they are posting a lot of the awareness in terms of how to be safe online and how to pick out what could be online holes that could actually get them in trouble. So those are some of the things that they are experimenting on, and they've been doing that during COVID. CETA has also been, as part of putting out those, I think, online portals. They've also are teaching in terms of the 4 attributes of Cyber Smart Pacifica, which is using a password manager and maintaining your security online with checking your privacy settings and stuff like that. So not only has CETA been pushing those digital transformation platforms, they've also been training those soft security and safety awareness campaign together. So it's, I think from the educational perspective, I think it's building that cybersecurity culture, and then that culture becomes as part of students' habits in terms of actually executing and getting online for those type of things.
Okay, thanks. I noticed, Klee, you've been quite active on the chat. Do you have anything else to add to that, or?
I guess some folks are sharing some resources. I shared NetSafe, which is an organization here in New Zealand that looks after cyber safety. And they've actually been around quite a bit longer than us, and they started with a focus on the education community. That's a little bit more of their space than CERT and Zed's space. So I would definitely point to them for good resources. Torrin shared Cyber Safety Pacifica, which is, I guess, a law enforcement community across the Pacific. They definitely +1 Torrin. Saya shared Get Safe Online, which is some resources, and Anne did as well as the Online Safety Commission. So I guess the reason I'm stealing everyone's links and sharing them is it is a little bit outside of the CERT NZ core space, especially the youth angle. But if we're talking the older end of the youth spectrum, I definitely encourage what Suetena was talking about there, about building that community. There are a lot of open communities, and Italanoa is kind of developing into that as well, where cyber issues are being discussed. CETA is one with a lot of that professional angle. There's things in Samoa and Vanuatu with Ban IGF, and in Tonga, and all over the place. And these communities can be a great place to not necessarily have formal training, but really get introduced to the issues and be able to meet other people working in the space, and getting that kind of practical information sharing and experience sharing can kind of be the best way to build that expertise.
William, if I can add on to my response earlier, we have the the Vanuatu Internet Governance Forum in Vanuatu, where a lot of the activities are revolve around education, and they have been very active with the institutions around in Vanuatu to help them in those kind of areas. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier is within our cybersecurity strategy, the different approaches and the priority areas, our key priority areas, and how the response to those key priority areas, we've taken into consideration as well those things such as helping institutions with policies, especially schools and other government institutions within the country. And this is something that we are focused on. And one of the key priority areas for our national cybersecurity in Vanuatu, the strategy is capability or capacity building, cybersecurity capacity or capability within Vanuatu. And that is something, one of our key priority areas in our draft national cybersecurity strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're kind of getting towards the end. I think there's one question which is probably relevant here, is the one that relates to a regional framework, cybersecurity framework. Is that something that's being actively pursued? I'm just trying to find the question. Here we go. Oh, it's actually from Cherie, I think. Or possibly Tim. What are the next steps for pushing for a regional cybersecurity standard? I suppose the first question I'd like to ask is something like that necessary, and then the following one is that's a question for Torrin, but I'll throw it open to everyone as well. So.
Well, I can answer that first. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and yeah, I would agree with what you were saying just then, Will, is that I would say it's actually not necessary. The point of having an international standard is that you know, even beyond the Pacific, experts from all around the world have come together and agreed on what best practices for cybersecurity. So they've kind of done the hard work for you. So yeah, I would say that yeah, the work's already done, and the international standard would be the best place to start.
Okay, does anyone want to disagree with that? And let's have a bit of controversy to kind of finish things off with.
This isn't necessarily specifically about standards, but in terms of the regional approach, I think there's space for kind of all levels of the approach. A regional approach like what we're doing here at Italanoa, what Cyber Safety Pacifica is, what Paxon is, what Pylon is, it's a really great way to build a network of like-minded folks who can share information, best practices, and help each other through different challenges. But you also need to have that local layer underneath it, with a strong local community, strong local organizations to do the work on the ground. And they can be they can be mutually reinforcing, and each play kind of different roles there. And those can in turn also plug into that international picture. So while there isn't need necessarily for something like a formalized regional this, that, or the other, there's definitely space for the different layers and different scopes to all coexist and mutually reinforce each other.
Okay, thank you. Any others want to chip in with an idea there? Okay, it might be, well, now I'll hand over to Tim Tuisawau, who's been dutifully taking notes, and Tim's actually the lead for the special interest group in PIC-ISOC for cybersecurity. So I'm interested to get some perspective from Tim as to what he thinks about what he's heard tonight and where we go to from here.
Yep. Thanks, Will. Well, I think it's been a very good session. We've got various perspectives, as mentioned before, both from the policy, with the Commission, and the government perspective, with our Samoan counterpart having his presentation. Also from the standards perspective with Torrin. So, and then we come down to the CERTs. I mean, these are the guys that, sort of join the dots and check the packets and all these sorts of things. So, we've got various layers, as mentioned previously by Klee. It's not just an individual sort of approach. It has to be not only a multi-layered approach, but one that's done at various levels. So I think with the panel that we have tonight, we've addressed that as much as possible, getting the views from various, I guess, sectors of the industry in terms of cybersecurity, cyber awareness, and I think as mentioned by Loia in his presentation, in order to answer the question of whether cybersecurity can be a measure of cyber awareness. He at the end of his presentation he said yes, and I think it's with COVID, etc., that's happening. I think everyone is of the same view that the world has changed, and it's never going to be the same. The push to more online resources, online collaboration, etc., has just accelerated over the past few months. I mean, just from my experience here in Fiji, a lot of things that we thought would take 6 to 12 months, before we got there, actually happened in a very short period of time. So, the whole world sort of, moving at hyperspeed, so to speak, towards online collaboration and digitizing resources and clouds and things like that. But as mentioned by Klee and the CERTs, on the other hand, you have other guys that are also enjoying the opportunity, where people are sort of getting online, not being fully prepared for this sort of cyberspace. And you have these bad guys out there that, obviously are going to take advantage. So, it's very important, as put forward. I think the common message that came out was, there has to be collaboration, not only vertically across the region, but I guess horizontally within, our own spheres of operation. And I think e-Talanoa sessions like this just helps to create that awareness and to help people network with each other. I mean, just looking at the number of people that have come online today, I think there's about 23 people on this session, which is, pretty much 23 people who have, been introduced to each other through a 90-minute session, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, just to sort of summarize everyone's contribution, I think it's been a very valuable session. I've written down like 4 pages of notes, so I probably won't be able to go through it all at once, but yeah, so in sort of in a ballpark sort of summarized thing, that's it. I can probably type it out and provide it if people are really, really want the notes, but yeah. So yeah, basically, thanks, Will.
Thanks, Tim. Well, I was wondering who was going to do the summary for the week. So you just volunteered yourself, I think. Anyway, I think everyone's probably got, everyone's time's valuable, and I really appreciate everyone being here and participating, and the questions have been fantastic. Presenters have provided really good insights into what's happening around the region, so I'm really thankful. So thank you everyone for your participation. It's been great, and also thanks to Cherie and Tim for organising a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, getting the. This must be the first PIC-ISOC Zoom. I'm pretty sure. Maybe is that correct, Cherie? I mean, you just can nod if you like, if you don't want to speak. But yeah, you go.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and it's gone off fairly smoothly, I think. Really, I think. So congratulations to both of you, and. This is the last opportunity if you want to, well, it's not the last opportunity, but certainly a good opportunity if you'd like to maybe make contact with people and exchange notes. I think Tim's really summarised things very well. Would you like to say a few words, Cherie? Or wasn't quite sure if you're...
No, Tim, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. We're looking at more cybersecurity related topics, but Will and Tim will be in touch through the mailing list. If you're not on our mailing list, please join. Get in touch with us on this. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a great session. It's really good to see everything that's, I mean, all the positive things that are happening. And I agree with Tim in terms of, I certainly would agree in terms of, things that we thought would take months or years to achieve, have been achieved in very short periods of time. I know from my own perspective, having to teach and doing it, we had to kind of virtually transfer everything from face-to-face to online within about 3 weeks, and that was amazing how quickly we managed to do that. But like most of you, I think we probably spent a lot of time, weekends, nights, so certainly put in a lot of overtime, which we probably weren't paid for. But anyway, we certainly learned a lot. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Thanks, and we look forward to making contact with you on certainly on PIC-ISOC list, and also LinkedIn. That's a great way to exchange details. But thank you very much, everyone, and we'll catch you sometime in a later e-Talanoa session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.